Thanks for joining us. Our weekly installment on Tough Guys. Great drivers, great mechanics, great memories in IndyCar racing. Well, today's subject, never won an Indy race, never won an Indy pole. I'm not sure how many laps he led. But don't ever discount Jerry Karl. He was a hell of a race driver and a hell of a story because he embodied what the little guy was in IndyCar racing in the 60s and 70s. He came out of Pennsylvania in the early 70s, didn't run a lot of USAC. We really didn't know who he was. Showed up with some old Toyota at Trenton, I think, and slogged around in the back. And there was just something about him, though, that caught Smokey Yunick's eye. He liked the fact that this kid had some spunk, and he stood on the gas. So Smokey Yunick hires Jerry Karl to drive his Indy car, which had this radical turbocharged stock block. Wasn't real reliable, but it was real quick. And they made a pretty good combination. They made the Indy 500 3 times, Smokey and Jerry. But my favorite memory is at Pocono in '73, I believe it was. Jerry's one of the fastest guys all week leading up to qualifying, in the top 3 or top 4 every day. So he goes out to qualify. In those days, sorry, we had a pit board and a stopwatch. So the old Smoke's he's running the stopwatch. He misreads the first lap, and they give Jerry Karl a bogus number, 5 miles an hour slower than he's gone all week. So he's hauling ass down the straightaway, going into turn 1 about 300 yards deeper than he ran the lap before, spins, pounds the wall. Smokey goes to the infield hospital, apologizes to Jerry while they bandage up his knees, says, "We'll get him later, kid." And of course they did. They made Indy 3 times together. In 1974, Jerry had his best ride ever at Indy. He was driving for Lindsey Hopkins in a year-old Eagle. And by about the 125-mile mark, he's up to 5th place. Cuts a tire, hits the wall. That was by far his best ride at Indy, his best chance. So in the late 70s, we get more and more sponsorship and bigger teams are starting to form, and ground effects comes along, which usually pretty much obsoletes the little guys like Jerry Karl. But this is why I really like this guy. He had a shop in Pennsylvania, and his best buddy was Lou Parks, who's been an IndyCar mechanic for the last 50 years, one of the great guys in racing. And that winter, with no wind tunnel and no aerodynamicist, they take a 1973 McLaren that was driven by Peter Revson, an old M16, and they put the Jerry Karl, Lou Parks ground effects set up on this old McLaren, and they put a stock block Chevy in it. They take it to the Indy 500 and qualify in 1980. It was called the Tonko Trailer Special, a white car, stock block Chevy. He makes the race in 1980 and in 1981 with this car. But what he did in 1980 in the November race at Phoenix was still one of the great moments I think I ever saw in racing. He qualifies 19th at Phoenix. Okay, that's about where you figure this car is going to run. As the race progresses, he starts passing people. Well, Mario Andretti's driving for Roger Penske. Mario Andretti's running second, and Jerry Karl passes him on the outside for second place. And I've never heard a noise like that. That roar from that grandstand, the only noise comparable is when A.J. Foyt put the dirt car on the pole at Milwaukee. When Jerry Karl took second place from Mario Andretti, the place went crazy. And it was just such a cool moment. And he stayed in second place for like 9 or 10 laps before the engine started to go south. I'm not sure where he finished, 9th or 10th. But he got such a great ovation when he got out of the car, as big an ovation as Tom Sneva did, who won the race. And that just pretty much told you all you need to know about Jerry. He towed his own car, he worked on his own car, they put their own setup on it. Yeah, he didn't win a race, but he was a winner in many ways. And I just think the way that he approached racing, and the fact that nothing ever seemed to get the guy down. If he had to borrow a little money here or piecemeal this or get an old car and try and rub on it, he always made it work. 1981, Jerry Karl's last appearance in the Indy 500. He's in the last row with Mario Andretti and Tom Klausler in the old Tonko Trailer Special. And yeah, he's not in the Hall of Fame, and a lot of people probably never heard of Jerry Karl, but I can tell you this, I'm really glad that I got to watch him and got to know him, because he was part of that spirit of the little guy that just doesn't exist anymore. And big money's taken over racing, and the Jerry Karls are gone. But when he was around, he left his mark. This is Robin Miller for Racer.com. Thanks for watching. Read Marshall Pruitt this week. Read Mark Glendenning. We'll see you next week.